What a pleasure, and what a pleasure, and thank you all for being here. I understand this is the very last of this Echo series, which has been a huge success, and I want to thank you for being here today and sharing these ideas about essentially how do you rewire the emotional brain in your patient, and how do you protect yourself in that process. Our major asset right now is the people who are on the front lines in healthcare. And most people are burned out, most people are exhausted, and it has to do with the fact that the stress from the patient goes right into our emotional brain, because the emotional brain has no walls. And so even when we try to think our way to feeling better or, coping or whatever, it still goes in there. So I'm going to show you something that's a very simple method that my colleagues at UCSF and I have worked on for 42 years. That is a new paradigm in healthcare that could be very relevant to you for your own health and for your patients. I'm going to show you a little bit about this in a couple of ways. I'm actually going to move through it pretty quickly because I'm going to show you a lot of real sessions. Okay, and I'm the founder of Emotional Brain Training. My colleagues are neuroscientists. I'm a health psychologist, and I've been on the faculty at UCSF for 42 years, just retired last year. And what I want to do is, first of all, say that as I studied the emotional brain over time and worked on EBT, this method I'm going to show you, what astonished me, because the emotional brain is the seat of everything that matters: connection, spirituality, survival, reward, health, resilience, is the more we stuck with neurophysiology and neurophysiology and neuroplasticity, the simpler and simpler it became. And just the way the cognitive approaches become more and more complex, what essentially I hope you will do is exhale as you watch this and appreciate it. If we just go back to physiology, we can have a foundational approach to protecting ourselves and having our patients feel better. You will notice also that emotions are very fast. Right now, we need more healthcare providers. We want to be sure that we're offering the best service to our patients as quickly as possible, and also that we're protecting ourselves. And part of that is how much time it takes. These sessions typically take 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 25 for a long one, because emotional circuits, to change them, requires emotions. You have to use emotions in an innovative way. And if you use emotions in an innovative way, they're fast. If you slow it down, people start thinking their way through problems, and that slows it way down and does not necessarily rewire the emotional circuits that are causing the problems. Today, it's going to be a quick pass through EBT. If you're interested in being certified in that, please let us know, and please let the folks at Echo know, because we offer an amazing 2-day course where you can be certified to do all of this for yourself and for your patients. So I'm going to run through this pretty quickly now, and I hope you, one more thing right here. Yeah, okay, we're okay. What I hope you do is, any questions you have, Victoria's on hand, and she's going to do that, and I'm going to be focusing on trying to give you an exciting presentation. So, and I wonder if I should be admitting or not, but you all know very clearly, I'm going to do that, that we're stressed out, and that's just what APA is saying, that we're uncertainty, regret, confusion, overwhelm, and it's the speed of change, it's the existential threats, it's the violence, it's the war, it's the shrinking resources, it's the temptations, it's the distractions. It all comes together to create stress overload. And we have not had a scientific, brain-based, scalable, rapid way to switch off stress overload. We know that cognitive methods go about to mid-stress level, but not to the bottom of the brain where those stress circuits that are really reactive reside, without co-regulation. Now, co-regulation is very expensive, and also there's nothing like it. So there's going to be some co-regulation from the provider, but in general, we want them also to learn skills that they can use between sessions. So interestingly enough, the US is one of the most stressed countries on the planet. This is some amazing data. We're right up there with some of the most stressed countries in the world. And the problem is that it's become merged together. Now, you can be in mental health or you can be in physical health, but truly it's the same thing when it comes to the brain. The brain doesn't know the difference. It knows that when it's on stress overload, it is going to be vulnerable to the onset, prolongation, and exacerbation of all these problems. So these epidemics we're seeing right now, in many ways, are symptoms of untreated stress overload. What I mean by that is not homeostasis, the self-correcting kind, but allostasis, where it careens out of control. And I'm going to show you exactly what that's like now. So we now are stuck with symptoms of stress overload that are really hard to treat if we're not stressed or we're not taking care of the physiological stress. We have a chronic disease crisis, a mental health crisis, an over-medication crisis, and a morbidity crisis. I mean, we are in crisis right now. And it's typically in crisis when we change paradigms, keep everything we have, but then add a new element that can address what is missing. And that's what we're doing. So we believe that we should be treating health symptoms with all the ways we are, with the diagnoses, with the medications, with the procedures, but we also need to treat the stress. Here's a wonderful colleague of mine who speaks widely about EBT, and I want you to see what she has to say about what's going on that we're ignoring physiological stress overload and not providing that foundation. Here's what she has to say.
As a naturopathic doctor, we're taught first, do no harm. And I know allopathic doctors are trained in that same realm. EBT is a non-invasive, very effective way of helping people relieve their stress overload. There's no need for drugs. There's no need for exercising 30 hours a day. EBT provides the tools to help us deal with our stress. Stress is the #1 cause of all the chronic diseases affecting us. And there is absolutely no way we're going to relieve those chronic diseases without dealing with stress. There is absolutely no way. And I know that everybody perceives stress differently, and it doesn't matter. However it is that you perceive stress, once you start the pathway that leads to the secretion of cortisol and other stress hormones, you're going to be setting yourself up for the chronic diseases that come with the stress overload. Whether it's heart disease, we know diabetes. And it's very interesting, especially among African Americans. And this is one of the conversations that I have a lot with those who are in my community. We have had, I won't say disinformation, I will say misinformation. When you talk to the elderly in my community about diabetes, for example, they call it the sugar disease. So in their mind, they're thinking they have diabetes because they have too much sugar in their blood. Well, we don't even talk about why they have that sugar in their blood. We don't even talk about cortisol. Diabetes is a result of cortisol. When we talk about the disproportionate deaths of Black mothers following childbirth, we're not talking about simply because they have a lower paying job. Many of those mothers who die have very high paying jobs and they're very educated. The difference is the cortisol. It is the stress. That has been documented. We know that. And until we start having these conversations about stress, until we start talking about the need to deal with stress, not to suppress the symptoms that come from stress and all the chronic diseases, but actually dealing with stress, which is the insult that leads to the chronic diseases that we are dealing with.
Okay, and Valerie's talking about really much more about diabetes and metabolic syndrome and such, but the same applies, of course, to the mental health. It just essentially all piles up in the brain, and that's what I'm going to show you about. So our approach is, okay, you know what? Let's just start fresh and let's treat brain stress. This is starting fresh from 1978 when I first arrived at UCSF, all the way through taking CBT and realizing we weren't getting down to the physiological roots, and adding emotional tools. They weren't enough. And then in 2007, we realized there was 5 different levels, physiological stress levels in the brain. Unless you had tools for each one, because they were different pathways in the brain, you would not be able to address stress overload. And since then, we've been making it simpler. And what I'm showing you today, I'm going to rush through some of this, is that there is a 5-point system, and each of those stress levels in the brain has a different emotions are different at each of the 5 pathways. Okay, they just are, because at the bottom of the brain, they're really extreme. At the top of the brain, you can say, how do I feel, or what do I need? You can't even begin to do that once you get into the territory of stress overload in the brain, lower in the brain. But what we did that I'm excited about, that I want to show you, we've just done this over the last 5 years, is get a way for clinicians to just look at their patient like they always do and say, tell me what's bothering you, and go right on to their brain's resilience pathway through 5 core skills that get down to trauma. And the patient never knows the difference, except the patient ends up being at brain state 1, the top state of neural integration. And you know that by using these 5 tools and getting on that resilience pathways, that you can be less stressed. You just follow their physiological responses. You essentially are able to put a barrier up so you can get them out of stress sooner. If they're in stress for 50 minutes and you're sitting there, it's going right to your brain. You want to get them out of stress within 10 or 15 minutes at the most, and then you can do all sorts of other insight-oriented methods. But to protect yourself, sitting there encountering this stress is not necessary, nor is it perhaps beneficial to your patient. They need to learn how to spiral up and switch off that stress response. So the neuroscientific way is to rewire those circuits in the brain that cause stress, because they're under our emotions, behaviors, and thoughts. Tom Insel as well. Mental health problems are biological problems involving brain circuits. So you're going to be talking to your patients about circuits, not symptoms, because there's endless symptoms. If you solve one symptom or issue, there's going to be another one there until the brain set point is changed and some of these circuits are rewired. You probably have heard of these folks, but we integrated into EBT all of these major changes in stress. Now, stress is now viewed very differently than it was in 1990. This research started in 1990. Between 1990 and 2010, we completely changed how we think about stress. It's not about relaxing. It's not about being mindfully aware. It's about getting into the circuits of the brain and switching them off. These are emotional circuits. They're pretty nasty. They have really strong negative, extreme emotions, way high, way low, or numb. And so these are the different sciences that have gone into it. There's a lot more on the science on our website at ebt.org. And also, if you want to check out there's a complimentary app for everybody here. I think that Victoria is going to put it in the chat box. So if you want to go along, you can see that app. And if you go to ebt.org, the same credentials are there for workshops and videos and such. So what we're talking about here is the emotional brain. It's not the psychological brain. We always think of Freud. It was not the psychological brain. It's the physiological brain. And my work at UCSF with Igor Mitrovich and the whole team there are specialists in stress physiology. And that's where I was able to collaborate with them and bring together this method. So essentially, let's keep it simple. There are thousands of brain states, but there are only 5 tools, basic tools. I'm talking about the basic tools that your patient has on the app versus the high-powered therapeutic trauma skills that are 5 core skills of stress overload. It's too bad they're the same number, but they really are. Either one you just need to find. This is just basic neurophysiology. There are 5 different levels of stress in the brain. At each level of stress, we are very different. Now, when we teach this to medical students, which we have for 10 years, they say, oh my gosh, I'm used to thinking about problems as the behavioral problem, the relational problem, the different problems, as if, these are essentially vertical. And in fact, health is actually horizontal. These are brain states that are physiologically completely different. They're on a continuum. And if you get in the habit of being in a brain state that's stressed out, you will also develop a set point or a stress habit in one of these stress areas. This is allostatic load. and your brain will want to be down here. If you have a patient who has a set point at 4 or 5, what's going to happen is their brain says, this is familiar, this is safe. I don't want to be in joy. I don't want to have natural pleasures. I don't want to go outside, because these are the responses that feel comfortable. So you can see here, if someone's living at even in a moment, it is a brain state 1, everything's going great. At brain 3, straight 3, not so good. At 5, pretty bad. And then if we use a pre-neuroscience-based model where we treat one thing, like if you have people come in who have relationship problems and they are at each other's throats, they're down here and you're trying to fix the problem. Well, if you reframe it and say it's really a stress problem and we need to get you out of the stress ditch, we're going to show you how to do that. Essentially, maybe the presenting problem they have is the relationship, but because it's physiologically based, you're going to get improvements in the other areas that all feed in to make it easier to help people feel better faster. That's what we're looking for. And here are those basic brain states. So you can see that beyond the brain states, if you're in behavioral health, or if you're in chronic disease and you say, I need people to change their behavior. Why are they not changing their behavior? They're not changing their behavior because they can't change their behavior. If they're at 3, 4, or 5, they are stuck. And change is extremely difficult. Cognitive functioning, what we want to do is get them out of the stress ditch. So cognitive functioning, inhibitory control, satisfaction from natural pleasures. You've got to be pleasured some way. So you're getting them there, and drive for artificial pleasures, and reward activation for a higher purpose. So essentially, we want them to deal with their stress foundationally and then fill in everything else with the medications, procedures, and the therapist can be doing this. The nurse practitioner can be doing this. This is a skills-based program. So, and then once you know your number, you use the corresponding tool. 5 brain states, 5 tools, each that respond to the way emotions behave in that level of stress, and essentially clear the negative emotions and move to the positive ones. So we just want people to switch it up. We call it spiral up, because isn't that fun to say? You got to make it fun. And so when we do spiral up, we end up switching brain circuits. So now I'm going to move from talking more generally about EBT to what we're really doing in terms of this is the unconscious mind, this is the emotional brain. And again, if you go in the direction of medications, which people need medications, but if you go in that direction in terms of research, it becomes exceedingly complicated, because we're looking for esoteric pathways, and often they don't work out because the overall stress hasn't been dealt with anyway. But when we just start fresh and say, how are we going to help people feel better, faster, based on neurophysiology, we're going to see if we can switch off the circuits that don't work and switch on the ones that do. So, this was a major breakthrough in EBT in 2007, because Igor Mitrovich, the scientific director, had the background because he teaches medical students neurophysiology, and he's a neuroscientist, to be confident and to say, you can micromanage all these circuits, but the fact is they're either homeostatic and resilient, or they're allostatic and reactive. Essentially, there's 2 different kind of circuits that are very different in the brain. One are very protective, and one have no shut-off valves. And that's why people in a bad mood are going to stay in that bad mood, or the behavior doesn't stop because of the kind of circuit. So there's resilient circuits and there's reactive circuits. So when you educate your patients about this, it comes down to 2 and 5. Those are the numbers. Okay, and so the reactive circuits are the problem. These reactive circuits are the underlying root cause of health problems and human suffering. Everyone has some. And essentially what happens is these circuits have no shut-off valves. They're the position when homeostasis doesn't work, when people are out of control. It moves into these reactive allostatic circuits that know no bounds. It's the circuit believes that we're about to be annihilated, and the blood pressure can go up, the blood sugar can go up, the hostility can go up, the numbness can go up, the mania can go up, the anxiety, the panic, anything is going to be out of control because we are at risk of annihilation. All stress circuits have 3 parts. It starts off with, and if you think about when you get triggered, okay, just when you get triggered, all of a sudden you're going along, like my husband sometimes triggers me, and he did last night, and he's saying something to me, and I all of a sudden, he didn't look like the nice guy he is. He kind of looked like, sort of like the devil, like, who is this person anyway? Well, this is what happens with these reactive circuits. They come on, and then once they're on, they get stuck. So the emotions are inaccurate. The expectations, not neocortical conscious expectations, but the from trauma, from adverse childhood experiences, that the way the brain has extracted from those experiences unreasonable expectations about ourselves, others, and how to survive. So those unconscious expectations are activated with a huge outpouring of biochemical drive to do it, as if we're going to die if we don't. And then an ineffective response. These circuits, we all have some, but when there's a dominance of them, that's particularly important for healthcare, because there's no shut-off valves. So no judgment. These we give them fun names. You can talk to your patients about spiral. Do you spiral up or do you spiral down? So all we're doing is saying to patients, you have circuits like everybody else. And when you're running one of these circuits, you're going to do things that are not necessarily what you want to do, or what is something you might regret differently, or they may cause your diabetes or your obesity or your anxiety disorder. So what happens is, I'm just going to teach you how to switch off that circuit. The problem is not you, it's a circuit. Patients love hearing, I'm doing a bunch of tapes right now for a conference this weekend, and patients love hearing that it's not them, it's the circuits that were encoded in their brain in childhood or later during stress overload, and it's not their fault. We haven't known really till 2007 that people could use emotional tools to rewire them, and they can switch it off for accurate emotions. This is homeostasis, reasonable expectations, and effective responses. That's what we want. And they do have shutoff valves, so they'll wear out sooner. Spiral up wires. Okay, good. So just to give you a little mental picture of this, this is the emotional plasticity theory upon which EBT is built. And this is, you probably know about allostatic load and how, what happens is the stress piles up in the brain. And this is just taking the work of Bruce McEwen and others at Rockefeller and just turning it sideways so there's an intervention for it. Okay, so starts off, there's a bunch of stressors, it goes into the brain. And what happens is it either strikes a resilient circuit or a reactive circuit. And this is just physiology, okay? And then it goes from there. Psychological mediators are affected, the set point of the brain, whether the habit of the brain is to go up or down, and then improvement, and then stress-related biomarkers and behaviors. And then all that produces optimal health. This is just that cascade of what happens to you, me, and everybody else when we're hanging out, and all of a sudden stuff is happening in our life, and the brain automatically responds to it, and all this happens in a nanosecond. What the idea behind EBT is, again, keep everything that we're doing the same, but can't we start earlier? Can't we give people the power, just the way Dean Ornish did work about 20 years ago, saying, because he was a heart surgeon, and he says, why don't we start earlier and change behavior? Well, behavior is all the way down here. It's already happening from physiology. And we're saying now the new approach based on the breakthroughs in neuroscience is we start a lot earlier than behavior. We start giving people the power to switch off that stress overload before it gets that bad, before it accumulates. So EBT has shown effectiveness in 14 studies, including 2 and 6 year follow-ups. And also people are busy, and people don't want something that's instantly giving them the safety and the reward they want. In our studies on emotion regulation with training, remember, there's the app for people with high set points, but if you move to the mid-range or lower, you need a provider. You need someone to say, you can do this. I'm going to get you started with this, or you need a group. So the emotional brain craves social connection, but we found with our patients, they were coming in for the coaching, or they were in groups, just small groups with the same therapist or provider. And they said, if I can't do it in 2 minutes, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be stressed out all all day. And then by the time I get home at night, my dopamine is going to be low and I won't really have the energy to and enjoy my life. Some of you know Dave Ingebrigtsen, who's a leader in EBT. He's actually the chair of the mental health campaign for EBT. And with his group at Miriam Health, he just has his behavioral therapists do EBT between sessions. So they do it as part of how they take care of their therapists. They say, your job is to get out of stress overload. You have to essentially, you are treating your patient with your set point and with your brain state. You're either transmitting all those circuits that are at brain state 1, or you're trying to suppress your emotions and just get through the day. We can't afford for you to do that for yourself or the patient. So between sessions, if you're not at one, just take out your app or go to another therapist there and say, would you listen to me for 2 minutes? If you want, if you want to do that. But either way, we want you to take charge of preventing stress overload, be your best self, love your job, and help patients get the skills as well. So why do we need EBT? We need EBT because the current methods are not designed to switch circuits. You know, truly, if you look back on that calendar I gave you, I'm telling you, think for a moment where you were probably not even born down in 1978. You probably weren't, but I will say that it was a different world back then. And right now, we are having to reset mental health care and chronic disease, physical health care to deal with our current realities. Isn't that what we're all doing? I remember when my mother died and my father was in, oh gosh, terrible shape for about 9 years until he passed away. He had diabetes, he had depression, he had all these terrible problems. And what he said is, isn't it true that you want people to feel better faster? And that the simpler you make it, the easier it is for them to hold on to it and feel better. So we want people to feel at our best self. And what I said to my dad is, I said, Dad, I know Mom's gone, but your job is really to adjust to your current reality. And the way I'm doing every day and you're doing every day, the world is changing so quickly. And I said, I'm going to help you with EBT. So he actually did at 90 years of age, he did EBT. And I will say that what we're trying to do in healthcare is say, we had a certain world before stress overload was common. Before the pandemic, our estimate from disease rates was that the set point of the United States was around 3.5. We think it's now 4 to 4.5. And people are treating the symptoms with medications and lots of support, but their underlying tendency in the brain is to go into stress overload. And so those of us in healthcare and insurance and how do we take care of people is we need to move into the world of treating stress overload based on neuroscience. So I want to show you why that is. Okay, I want you to imagine this is your brain from top to bottom, and all it is a bunch of file drawers. Fundamentally, all the other circuits are affected by the stress response. So that's why we focus on the stress response. Obviously, people have fewer memories, they have all this, but they're all activated or not activated, or they activate the stress response. So we go right to the jugular, right to the stress response. So these are all the stress circuits in the brain. And obviously, these guys are allostatic or reactive, and these are homeostatic, or resilient. And they're stored based on what brain state we were in when they were encoded. So all the happy memories, like right now, I live across the street from the school. I have 3 children who are grown, and I look at the school, and my next door neighbor hates being next to the school because what happens in the school is there's kids are noisy. And I look at the school and all I can feel is joy, because my unconscious mind activates all my memories of the kids going across the street to school and playing around. And so really our experience in everyday life is the replay of the past with minor modifications. Okay, so the issue is all my happy memories are here, and then all my horrible memories, the divorce, the difficulty with and you name it, just the way you have it, are down here. And our patients have a lot of this, but we all have some. And they're not bad, because if you go down to a really bad memory and process the emotions, that's how you become mature. That's how you become empathetic. That's how you become a deeper, wiser person. You wouldn't want to be adversity insufficient, because that's how we really learn the deeper meanings of who we are and how we're going to live our lives. So here we are, because of state-specific memory, whatever brain state we're in, that circuit's going to be activated. Okay, and so the reactive circuits are stored at levels 3, 4, and 5. And what we want to do to get lasting results and have people feel better faster is to activate those circuits so that we can say we're taking reactive circuits and we want to rewire them into being resilient circuits. So you can say to your patient, I know it's really hard right now where you're stressed, but actually it's a moment of opportunity. And the same for you. When I get triggered by a patient, I go right in, I go right to my app, no judgments, and I find out what that circuit is and I update it so I can become a more loving person and not get stuck in chronic stress and come home and eat, drink, spend, or Netflix or whatever I'm going to do. Okay, so this is very important because in order to rewire those circuits, you've got to go there and you've got to feel your feelings through the gnarly emotions, the hostility, the negativity, and then stay the course quickly and spiral up. Now, we in CBT, what we use extinction. This is why this is a problem, because if you use extinction and you keep people calm and you give them insights, it can be helpful often, particularly if you're looking at them in the face and you're supporting them because they're going to feel emotional. But what happens when they walk out the door and they're not feeling that support, and then they get triggered, and then all the work you've done in therapy is at risk of being, of not being stored. Okay, so it's extinction essentially, Bill, this is how you differentiate in going down into your emotions and changing the circuit versus just trying to provide insights and support and external nurturing and co-regulation, which is very, very valuable. But this is the risk. If you keep them here, they do feel better, but they don't necessarily optimally get better, because these circuits down here are the problem. And it's only when they're stress activated that you can essentially process those gnarly emotions, which you do in psychotherapy, but those emotions, and switch them to resilient. And this is why we have a country that's become very use dependent on services, because people are not getting at the reactive circuits at the level necessary to keep ahead of this terrible stress overload that we have. So extinction is calming and building new habits on top of circuits that are reactive. And when people are stressed, these circuits are stronger and they will blow away the circuits that are calmer. Okay, so how do you get people to do this? Well, you do it in your psychotherapy, but this is just an organized way to help them learn how to do it during therapy, so therapy can cause you less stress overload and get them feeling better faster. But also, so between sessions, the skills are so simple, and you're teaching them to them during the sessions that they can catch themselves when they get reactive and have an easier time switching that off. This is what has to happen. You've got to go down to 3, 4, or 5. And here's the study that showed it. You can see here that this was done by NYU. They acquired a fear memory, and then they extinguished it, and then they checked if it stayed extinguished. If the circuit was stress activated, essentially stress activated right before the new learning, essentially it stayed gone. If they were not reminded, what happened? It came back. Okay, if they were calm with the new learning, it appeared to go away, but 3 days, and I'll show you this, 3 days and 1 year later, it was back. So the recidivism is high if you don't teach the emotional skills and rewire the emotional circuits. So essentially, they've got to be present to the negative emotions, and they're going to do it better with you. That's why we recommend 5 sessions. You do 5 sessions with them so they can be stress protected. There's those 5 skills I'm going to show you. They're not going to do it just with an app unless they're set points 1 or 2. Sustain their emotional awareness, and then they have to lock it in with dopamine. So that's the pattern. The rewiring is go down to preferably 4 or 5, hold on to the feelings and then change it. Okay, go. And then you have to go back up to 1. If they're not in joy at the end, they're not going to get that dopamine burst to really lock in those circuits. So that's essentially what is needed for reconsolidation. The folks also at NYU said, what's going on now? We have epidemics of stress-induced problems. If CBT really worked for those problems like they seem to in the lab, why do we have the problems going on? And they went in and they looked at these, at the giving people reappraisal, which you all well know is the most evidence-based of any method. They gave them a fear memory, and then they bring them back the next day and say, use reappraisal. And this is the scary part. What happened is it worked, but it only worked at low stress. And what happened in moderate stress, this was 2013, is the stress response got locked in. And look at this, even 20 minutes later, that means they weren't running a resilient circuit. They were running the chronic disease, reactivity, addiction circuit, poor behavior circuit, anxiety circuit. So it gives you the illusion it's working until you're stressed, and then it doesn't. So why do we need more? Why do we need emotional tools? Why do we need to go down to the bottom of the brain like this in an organized way that can be scalable? Well, we know that in stress, the thinking brain goes offline. Okay. And so, and the emotional blockade happens. Now, you and I are used to thinking of this emotional blockade as all these emotions, right? Okay. But even in terms of neurophysiology, it doesn't matter whether it's anxiety, depression, hostility, panic, shame, numbness, or false highs, because you can't process the emotions by asking, how do I feel? You need advanced skills to break up that emotional blockade. So then people get chronically stressed. They feel disconnected. And the circuits from the past trauma, circuits from past adverse childhood experiences, there are only 2 kinds of them. One are survival circuits, which are those triggered drives that makes us do exactly what we know we promised ourselves we wouldn't do. Or core circuits, which are false beliefs. So again, there's only 2 kinds of circuits in the brain. And essentially, what do? Well, in EBT, you say, you've got to get rid of your stress. And as much as getting into hostility is not a good idea, the only emotion that's negative, that's associated with power and going forward rather than retreat, is anger. And our research has shown that a quick burst of healthy, productive anger rapidly puts the PFC back online. It's a skill, and people learn to do it. And then these emotions that were so stuck start flowing. Flows through sadness, fear, and guilt, grateful, happy, secure, proud. It's essential to get people to the positive emotions quickly, because it's the positive emotions that turn off the stress response, the HPA axis. So actually, imagine that you're going to take these stuck emotions, and within 2 or 3 minutes, they're going to actually put the thinking brain back online, clear those negative emotions, just one of each. The anger, they've got to do a whole bunch of to get the brain back in connection. But this is one sadness, one fear, one guilt. And that's what's my power? What could I do differently? And it moves to positive emotions. Okay. And then after that, always change behavior. It's built into EBT. Behavior is huge. If you just leave them off feeling in their bliss without moving forward with how they're going to take action with purpose, and it's a little skill, it only takes about 15, 20 seconds to use, then there's a likelihood that they're going to go back to ruminating, obsessing, doubting themselves. We want to get them going forward in purpose with a dopamine endorphin surge. And that's what we want. And that's the basic EBT skill. Okay, here's a man that just came in, lots of problems. I'm going to show you public health people. There's also, obviously, I'm showing you the most difficult people to treat because their set points. This man's set point is 5. His family just left him. I got him to get into anger. It moved to sadness. I'll show you that quickly. And then I got him to use the tool to go forward and find the hard part and the reward. I'll show you. This is the first time he ever used it.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Turning into sadness. So connect with your body. That was really well done.
Okay,
Very
so that's the major part that he got from sadness, from anger to sadness. It's going to start flowing, and he's going to get up to joy.
My essential pain is,
I am alone. My essential pain is that I might be lonely, but I overcome this.
yes, but I have me, I have sanctuary, I have peace and power inside. So your reward is what? Sanctuary.
Yeah, I have me. I have me. Yeah. Yeah, I have me. I'll overcome this. Yeah, I have me.
You did it.
So that's
I did it.
that's just a
How are
skill.
you feeling, Mom?
That's just a skill. And we would hope at some point that all of public health teaches these skills. I'm sure you're aware of what's been going on with some violence as well. This needs to be embedded in public health. Okay, but also a lot of it is the unconscious expectations I mentioned, the core expectations. Once someone uncovers their expectations, which they do with this method, then they have 2 to 4 hours where the circuits are unlocked, where they can rewire it. And so that's just what we do. It's called a spiral up grind in. These are very simple skills. There's a very small number of them. People need a therapist, a nurse practitioner, someone who is going to be their guide in getting them started with. Obviously, we have a website and we have, drop-in groups and everything, but there's nothing that substitutes from your health professional saying, hey, do you know that the problem really is stress? And that's what's going to happen. Okay. So we now think that emotions are medicine, because it's only with expressing the negative emotions followed by the positive ones that the HPA axis turns off and you don't have chronic stress overload. So here's a young woman. Brain, there's an unreasonable expectation that I get my safety or my protection or my love from, basically closing down, right? But let's find the exact words. Of course, I wouldn't open up more because my unreasonable expectation encoded in my brain through no fault of my own, just from the past, is I get my, so just repeat that. Of course, lovingly. Of course I wouldn't.
Of course, I wouldn't open myself up more because my unconscious expectation is that
I get my, and then wait for it to come from your body. I get my, it's like safety, protection, love, survival, existence, something like that. I get my love through. Take a nice deep breath. And whatever that is has to come from your body, from pleasing people, protecting people, being perfect. I don't know, but whatever that is, from closing down, from hiding, from not upsetting people, I get my love from
pleasing people and making sure that, that they're happy and that I've, from people pleasing. And I think
people
it
pleasing.
kind of makes me feel like I need to be perfect.
Take a deep breath. And the shortest version of that really rings true for you is I get my love from
pleasing.
Good. So notice what's happening here. She's already had those feelings flow. She's trained now to listen. This is her first session, but she's learning how to use her conscious mind to listen to her body, bring up an unconscious message, not do it from her head, do it from her body, and then make it small and pithy. These circuits are very, very remote in the brain. They need to be very short. And then she's just going to juxtapose it and see. Okay, so the circuit is now open, it's unlocked, and it's open to change because you've been emotional. And you're going to first very slowly say, I cannot get my love from over pleasing, something like that. Real slow.
I cannot get my love from over pleasing.
Really, and it's connect with your body again. It has to go deep in your body. It's not just a thought, it's actually changing an emotional circuit. I cannot
get my love from pleasing others.
And what I mean by that is to the point that I lose all authenticity. I lose all real connection. Right. Again, you're doing great, cannot get the love I truly need.
I cannot get the love that I really need and want through pleasing others at the expense of myself.
At the expense of myself. And now with a little bit more, notice the emotions are going to shut down. So we're going to ramp it up by ridiculing the expectation because it's just an old wire we're trying to get rid of. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. Ridiculous.
I
It is.
cannot get the love I truly need.
I cannot get the love I truly need by pleasing others. I cannot get the love I truly need by pleasing
With
others.
more emotion. That's ridiculous. That keeps it changing the ring.
Okay, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely crazy. I cannot get the love I need by pleasing others.
Oh,
It's
God.
really silly that I ever thought that. That's absolutely ridiculous that I ever thought I could get the love that I need by pleasing others.
You have to get it somewhere, and it's always from within you, because that's the source, right? That's how the brain gets connected and we get healthy. I can get the love I need first and foremost, so I have more to give. I can get the love I need from connecting to the deepest part of myself and the love inside of me, or whatever you want to say that's internal. It's a secure connection to yourself. I can get the love I truly need with joy. I can get the love.
I can get the love that I really need by loving myself. I can get the love that I really need and desire by loving myself more than.
Okay. So I want you to notice, those of you who are therapists, this is acquired secure attachment. We're teaching people to go from external solutions to internal, from insecure attachment to secure attachment, from reactive circuits to resilient circuits. So what most therapists say is this, I get it. I get it. That's we're all trying to do, right? So the circuit. So what I want to do now is I'm going to just move through this pretty quickly, and I'm going to go to Tori on this. We might go an extra 10 minutes or so we can show videos. Is that okay? Or do you want us to kind of cut it shorter? Just double checking.
I think anyone that's willing to stay a little over is welcome to stay a little over. So we
Okay.
can keep it going.
Because we go for another 40 minutes,
Yeah,
right?
and I do just want to interject. Heather Green had asked if there was any recommended reading list that can build confidence in this modality. So
There are books on, go to ebt.org and go to the science. And also when people join there, they get all the books included and they get the app, but it's also on Amazon. But I would suggest going, there's books on Amazon, the stress overload solution, the stress eating solution. Just look under Laurel Mellon. There's a bunch of books of different aspects of EBT. But the best way is to go to the website because you get all of the books on PDF right there. So ebt.org, like food stamps, except it's emotional brain training. Anything else? Okay. So, and we don't, so this is for you. And what I want you to do is please, I hope you're as shocked as I was 5 years ago when we figured it came down to 5 skills, covered a lot of what you do so that you can relax into putting your energy toward emotionally connecting with the patient and going with the flow of their resilience pathways in their brain. Again, all we're doing is following neurophysiology. There are 5 core skills within Brain State 4 is the best because the brain's a little bit online and you can do a lot of change in the brain there. You get them from a 5 to a 4. And so there are 5 core skills of stress overload that start with the 3-4 tools. There are three tools at Brain State 4 that are on the app. One for situational stress, one for triggered stress, one for core messages like I'm not worthy, I am bad, I have no power. This is the major thing that you're going to do. Start with that. And then if you get into some trauma circuits, which you're hoping for, there's 2 additional skills. One, reattachment skill, travel back, and the other is clear the clutter. These are very simple skills that need to be applied very precisely. That's why we train health professionals, and that's why we train patients. If you do this precisely, we see remarkable results in 1 or 2 sessions. They're getting the idea of how much power they have, and they're seeing a physiological state. But the reptilian brain sabotages this. That's why they need your instruction. And that's why there is a need for instruction with this in therapeutically and also for the public. So these provide a comprehensive, simple therapeutic process that takes you through the emotional brain and allows you to do as much work as you can, but not so much that you trigger them into a flooding experience or stress overload. And this is how it looks. So stay with me for a second here. The skills all start the same way, just like you would say, you emotionally connect with your patient. You say, what's going on? How can I help you? But this is what happens normally. This phase goes on for a long time and causes you as a clinician stress in your brain. Okay. And so what we do, and also they can get attached to their story, telling their story over and over again, what I did wrong here, what happened, they did this to me, and then they did this. This is not helping them evolve in their emotional and spiritual development. And so what it means is right after they get the story out a few lines, so they know you care about them, you want to help them, you're there from them, you move them right into clearing the emotional blockade. Once they clear the emotional blockade, you have them connect with their body. When they connect with their body will tell them which pathway to go on to get the most rewiring benefit and the best resilience. So it's all based not on you having to figure it out, but to ask them to check their emotional brain, which would feel better. This makes it much easier to train people. That's why we can do it in 2 days. And it makes it easier for patients to learn it so they can do it between sessions. Okay, so you're going to go through that, clear that blockade right there. And then if it's just situational stress, you're going to go into just positive emotions. You always finish with the take action tool to change behavior. If they say, oh, I really want to know what's under that circuit, of course I would do that because I have an unreasonable expectation. They'll go under that, and it's either a drive and they'll use stop a trigger, or it's like a thud, like I feel just bad, like I've been abandoned. And that's a core circuit. You take them through that. And then if it's a light circuit, they're just going to spiral up like you saw that patient doing. And that's real quick. If you get lucky and you get a circuit at the bottom of the brain, what's going to happen is you're going to do either a travel back or a clear the clutter. You always end up with take action. So it's safe for you and the provider. So essentially you spiral up and they say what their higher order reward is for moving forward. And then they sit in their glow and say, wow, that feels really good. Do you feel the tingle in your body? And then you say, wow, you did it. You spiraled up. So all of you go down to a 4, you come to a 3, and you come back. And so you feel at a state of neural integration at the end as well. So this is good for you and good for the patients. So you're just going to be teaching them how to switch off stress overload. And you'll be teaching them in sessions that are 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever that is, because you're teaching them a lot. But then when they do it on their own, it's 2 to 5 minutes. So they, it's not the same as being with you, but they're not abandoned. They have something they can reach for when they're in stress overload and get results. So here's how it looks. Here's the situation is, clear the blockade. You're going to go into one of these 3 tools. And if you get lucky, you're going to do a travel black, clear the clutter, and that's it. Okay, you're going to obviously be doing more work for rewiring down with these than situational stress, but that's a set of tools that, based on neurophysiology, covers the entire emotional brain. What's important about this is you just ask questions. You don't have to figure everything out. You have them trust their body. And whatever feels good, because of interoceptive awareness, they're learning how to listen to their body, is going to be better for their resilience. They need to do these spiral ups a lot because they're in chronic stress and they've got to disrupt that. So it's got to be easy and it's got to be reliable. So because we rely on interoceptive awareness, teaching the patient how to read their body, it means that it's only 2 days to train a clinician in this, whether it's a physician, nurse practitioner, licensed mental health professional, psychologist. You can get these skills down in 2 days. There's also advanced training, but what we find is people are up and running, doing it right away with their patients. I'm going to show you someone really difficult. I'm only going to show you some of this, but there's 3 different episodes here. This is a woman whose set point is 5. This is kind of like when your patient's really, really having a hard time. Now, if you're a nurse practitioner or a doctor, we're going to teach you how you just use what's called the 5 tool and get them to clear that in about 5 minutes. So there's some stress overload tools. But if you're a therapist, you're going to want to be teaching them more of the resilience tools. You can see here that an app is not enough, that even though the app is right there with the resilience pathways on it step by step, and there are 23 steps in the brain's resilience pathways, the same numbers as the genes, 23 steps. So that's why they use the app, just little short things that they do. Okay, so I want you to see this because I want you to see that all of your skills as a therapist, you will use in EBT. I am a health psychologist. The LPCs and the PhDs that are master trainers in EBT say they use every single bit of the training they have in this method. It's just that they move it through the resilience pathways in the brain so people feel better. You're going to see that this is a certain kind of war, that in fact you're up against not the person's neocortex. And remember that most of the patients you see are going to be really easy, like the woman I just showed you. I mean, they just get it. And they want to do it. They're going to need guidance, support, and confidence and training, but essentially it's pretty straightforward. This is not straightforward. And you tell them beforehand, you say, when I correct you as you go through this, I'm doing it because if I let you do it wrong, you're going to learn to do it wrong. The whole point is we're up against your reptilian brain that wants to continue to self-regulate in a way that causes stress, overload, addictions, and chronic diseases. So how would it be for you if I interrupt? And they say, great, you never get. So I want to show you a little bit of this woman to show you that you will have to intervene. You have to give a ton of love and a lot of limits. The situation is just state the facts, no feelings, and just complain about what's bothering you. No feelings. We're going to do feelings second, but first you're just going to complain. The facts, no feelings.
The fact is, the situation, my friend passed away. And the fact is, it's a strange situation. I don't know where she was living. The people who contacted me have not contacted me back. I don't have a way to get there.
If the facts are done, you can stop. Is there anything else you need to say about the facts? And then we're going to go into the part that bothers you the most, and then we'll do feelings, and it'll be very quick and it'll feel great. Are you done for now?
I think, yeah, it seems to me, and I don't want to disturb the flow, but it seems to me it just wants to go immediately to crying.
Right. You want to go immediately quiet, and you'll cry all night. Right. And that's what's been happening. I'm showing you a different way. I'm showing you a different way to process emotions. You want to try it?
Yes.
Okay. Nice deep breath. Follow along with me. Once you do this a couple times, it'll get easy. Connect with yourself and listen to your body. What I'm most stressed about is just 2 or 3 words, 4 words.
I'm alone.
That I am alone. Great. Now that's the topic. So we're going to stay on topic because we're going to clear that stress out of your brain. The topic is I am alone. Can you commit to that?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to open up your brain with anger. It releases the stress. I feel angry that I'm alone. I can't stand that I'm alone. I hate it that I'm alone. Really short and choppy sentences until you get to sadness. I feel angry that I'm alone.
I feel angry I'm alone.
I can't stand it. I
feel like it's my fault.
Okay.
Not being more open.
We're staying in anger. Are you willing to do this?
Yes.
I feel angry that I'm not alone. Now say that, please.
I feel angry that I'm alone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't stand it that I'm alone.
I can't stand it. I'm alone.
I hate it that I'm alone.
I hate it.
Now I want to go in. I hate it. I really, really hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
I really hate it that I'm alone.
I really hate it that I'm alone. And I miss my friend.
Hate it. Of course you miss your friend. Take a nice deep breath. That would make me angry. I feel angry that I'm alone. I feel angry that I miss my friend. Unless it's gone to sadness. Has it gone to sadness? Okay, what I want you to do is connect with your body. I want you to have tender, loving sadness. And we're just going to do one, because what you're trying to reconnect to the deepest part of yourself. My deepest sadness is, my one deepest sadness inside me is, I feel sad that, and you're going to say it, and then no words, you're going to feel it in your body. I feel sad that.
I feel sad at being alone.
Take a nice deep breath and feel your sadness. Just feel your sadness in your body. Let it flow through your body. If it gets stuck, it'll go into depression. We're going to let it flow. We're going to let it flow. You're doing a beautiful job. Okay, so essentially you can see that she's got the feelings flowing. You can see I have to be very directive, and she's going to get rewarded very soon because it works. Okay, she's going to use emotions as medicine. I'm a little reluctant to do all of this with you, but I'm ready for more. It'll naturally fade.
I'm ready.
Beautifully done. Already you're doing a beautiful job. And now put your shoulders back a little bit and chest out, because you've done the hardest part once you face the fear. And you're going to turn to saying, you know, I do have some power here. I do have some power here. In the best of all worlds, I wish that I would. I feel guilty. Why don't I just, and it's just like you were 4 years old, just being very basic. Gosh, you know, logically, you know, I do have some power here. Why don't I just, I feel guilty. Why don't I just, and then see what comes up from your body. Please repeat the words. I feel guilty. Why don't I just, I have some power. Why don't I just?
I feel guilty. And I think I will write her a letter.
Mm-hmm. Taking that, you're already to action. You're already to action. You're going a little fast on this. I feel guilty that I didn't connect with her more. Okay, good. Take a nice deep breath. It's normal to have some regrets, but what you're doing is recognizing them and letting the feelings fade. Okay, and
I feel guilty. I pushed her away.
Okay. Oh, beautiful. Take a nice deep breath. That's your part of it. Take a nice deep breath and feel it until it fades. And we're going to go on to the next step. We're going to go on to the next step. Take a nice deep breath and another nice deep breath. And I'm going to ask you, you can go in several directions now, and whatever feels better to you is going to be better for your healing. Are you with me?
I think so.
Okay, one step is your mind might travel back and some images might come up that need healing. Or you may just have a strong desire to sit with your feelings right now until they fade. You might have a desire to change, to say, well, of course I would feel guilty about that because my unreasonable expectation is, of course I would have this irrational guilt, or I would have done what I did because there's a message in my brain that says I get my whatever. Of course, it's very good if you can go down there because it's a circuit, but you could also just sit with it. What sounds good to you?
Just sitting for now.
Sitting with, good. Okay, notice what just happened.
Tell me
What
when
just
you're
happened
ready
is
for
she was
more. It'll
able to
nat-
clear the emotional blockade. And then she was able to focus her attention with my co-regulation on one thing. And you'll see that she can go ahead and spiral.
I'm going through right now, given how hard it is. I need to move forward in a way that's of purpose, of higher purpose, right? I can't just sit in my misery. I need to do something, and only you know what you need to do. But this is called the take action tool. You're going to move forward with higher purpose, and that will lift you out of the stress. Okay? So I'm going to give you the lead-ins. You repeat them and see what comes up from your body. Okay?
Mhm.
Okay, good. So given all that I've been going through, it's been so challenging, so hard, so difficult. Then you're going to say, I expect myself to do the best I can to, and then you're going to see what comes up. Just repeat these words. I expect myself to do the best I can to.
I expect myself to do the best I can to. It's going to be to find a car.
Yeah, to find a car.
Yep.
Okay, good. Nice deep breath. Now you're going to need to encourage yourself. So let's add some positive, powerful words like I can do that, or that's important to me. Whatever.
I can do this. I know I can.
Great. Perfect. And now anything that's hard is going to have a hard part to it, or an essential pain, a reality of life that you have to face, or you won't
Mhm.
follow through. And you want to follow through, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the essential pain? I've got to find a car. The essential pain is I am alone. I'm not perfect. I'm not in complete control. It takes work. Some people may reject me. I must receive. I must give. Just the basic hard parts of life. What is the hard part of life that you most need to accept in order to really follow through and do this? Not just talk about it, but do it. I am
The hard-
alone. I
The
am not,
hardest part for me, you mean?
yes, to follow through. I am not in complete control. It takes work. Some people may reject me. I must give. I must receive. What's the hard part for you in actually following through? Because if it was that easy to do, you would have already done it. Yeah. Yes. What would that be?
It's to ask for help.
I have to ask for help.
It's a hard one for me.
And it would be worth it to ask for help because you care about a reward of purpose. And that reward of purpose that would make you ask for help, it could be sanctuary, which is feeling safety inside, could be authenticity, being genuine and whole. It could be vibrancy, healthy with a zest for life. It could be integrity, doing the right thing. It could be intimacy, giving and receiving love. It could be spirituality, however you define it. It could be freedom, all the common excesses fade and you can go forward with purpose. Which is the reward that matters most to you?
The ability to live my life the way I want to now that I'm retired, to like see something and just be able to go instead of like ask a friend to drive or bus doesn't go there. It's just
Oh, well,
I need
I know
to-
what that would be vibrancy, healthy with a zest for life.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so we got her to reward. Then we're going to ask her to check to see if she has a physiological change, because we always want to pair the physiological change with having used the tool. And she'll say she's in a glow. And we're going to say, what did she learn from it? And she's going to say, I learned I can process my emotions. And then as the provider, we can give her additional advice and support of how to move forward. So it's a very tight package that is physiologically based and reproducible. So here we go. The EBT 5 core skills of stress overload are patient-centered. It responds to their needs. We talk with them, we spiral them out of that brain state that's making everything worse. So we respond right in the moment to whatever presenting complaint that they have. It's an integrative. It treats both physical and behavioral health problems because stress is under both. And it's comprehensive. It deals both with situational stress overload and trauma. So this is a new approach to helping mental health professionals and physical health professionals use their energies in a way that protects them from the stress, because when you're at one, you essentially create a wall there. So your brain is bathed in the homeostatic chemicals, not the allostatic chemicals. And also you're transmitting it to your patient rather than going on to the next session and feeling really stressed. So the emotional brain is essentially the controller of stress and integrator of behavioral and physical health. The root cause of physical and behavioral health problems is stress overload. It's a new paradigm that's based on neuroscience and empirically based. We can protect health professionals in the workplace, get trained in this quickly and make brain state one part of the culture. As I say, Dave Ingebrigtsen, all of his behavioral health people just use it. It's a new language. Oh, I'm running at 4. Oh, I'm running at 5. I need 2 minutes to spiral up. Can you listen to me? Or I'm just going to go use my app typically. And we can also draw upon that framework of 5 brain states to do a lot more education to people in physical health. Oh, you're at set point 5 right now. You're not bad or wrong. This is just stress. And I'm going to give you to the behavioral health person who's going to teach you more about how to get out of stress. Do you understand? It's just stress. It's not you, but there's something you can do about it. Okay, so the next step, if you're a clinician, is 2-day certification training. And that will give you the clinical competencies to do this so that you really can get those resiliency pathways going and stress protect yourself, and also have fun learning the science. The science of this is fantastic. So you'll learn the neurophysiology and the neuroplasticity. Here's some great references on this, some key references that I mentioned in the talk. And again, you can always contact me. I do EBT probably 24/7 because it's a lot of joy for me. So you always feel free to contact me at Laurel@EBT. There's a free preventive app. It's just one tool, but it gets people started at Spiral Up. The therapeutic app comes with training, and it's meant to be introduced by health professionals. And then there's a backup of coaches that offer free services, just they can drop in and learn this because it's an educational method, and you can't have too much support with it. And again, the next step is this certification. Special appreciation to Dave Ingebrigtsen and to the whole team at ECHO, and also the people at Cornerstone, and to you for watching this during this time. So thank you again. And I'm going to turn it over to you and take a nice deep breath. Thank you again for being here. And what about questions or comments that we should go further?
Thank you, Dr. Mellon. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask, or just comments too? We had a couple of comments in the chat going.
We've definitely had positive feedback throughout the chat, so I'm really glad we were able to have our participants make some noise about this, Dr. Mellon. Thank you for sharing and bringing this wonderful information to us.
Shandy asked if there's any training materials available in Spanish, Dr. Mellon?
We are actually looking at getting a grant to do that in Spanish, and we're looking for grant funds to do it. It's actually easier than when we might think. We're working with several organizations on that, and if you have an idea for a grant on it, the app itself would not be that hard to make into Spanish because the lead-ins are very short, and they're biologically based. This is the resilience pathway. So you can not only count on helping people move from any age or any background, because the emotional brain is very simple and consistent with the resilience pathways, but we are looking to be able to translate it into more languages. Absolutely great. If you want to get involved, just send me an email and I can help you with that as well.
Dr. Razuri, he asked if you could explain again briefly the difference between the survival and the core circuit.
Yes. And what's his name? What is his name again, Dr.?
Dr. Carlos Rosuri Barandieran. Sorry if I
Great.
butchered that.
Wonderful. So, Dr. Rosuri, I want to tell you, this is so surprising that here we have stress in our brain. Our patients have all this stress. There's only 3 sources. One is stress overload, and the B positive tool melts those emotions and brings them back to 1. But there are 2 different kinds of circuits, only 2. And the survival circuit is this: your patient or is in a fight or flight response. So they're in stress overload. And again, it's just perceived stress. So it can just be that somebody said something to them that activated a stress response. So it happens frequently. You're in a stress response. The brain wants to record that because of evolutionary biology, because survival of the species is dependent. If we lived through it, it wants to remember what we did. So the survival circuit is a false association between a fight or flight response to get safety, love, protection, existence, survival from anything that happened to be co-activated with it. So that means a sensation, a brain state, a thought, a behavior, anything. So they typically show up because we know they're there because of behavioral drive. And that's why the number 1 use of EBT is that stop a trigger tool, where you're essentially taking that false association between love or survival or existence from eating, drinking, spending, merging, people pleasing, whatever that is, or just being numb. It can be an emotional, whatever that gets locked together, then without our approval or even awareness, because these are very stealth circuits, they don't make you feel like you're remembering something. You just do whatever it tells you to do. It just, in a knee-jerk reflexive way, that circuit has a fight or flight drive. That's why behavioral change behavior change needs to go for the circuit, rewire the circuit, rather than ask people to change the behavior, because it's just not going to happen. So essentially, this is a false association. These are very important. And in EBT, the first thing we do is we help people identify their survival circuits, because when they change those circuits, they understand how powerful they are and that these emotional tools work for them. The other kind is actually deeper in the brain and comes a little bit, although you still with the basic five core circuits of emotional evolution, learn this skill, but it is like a false generalization. So it's the feeling inside is I've been abandoned, I'm a terrible person, all is lost. And these core messages from insecure attachment, adverse childhood experiences, and the basic 7 are, I do not exist. Literally, with a trauma, someone with trauma, they'll have, I do not exist. I am bad. I have no power. I cannot do good. I cannot love. I am not worthy, and I certainly can't have joy. And the reason joy is emphasized in EBT is every time you get to 1, you're going to feel that burst of elevated emotions and get in that transcendent state. And that is medicinal, because we need positive emotions to turn off the HPA axis, the stress response. So we see it all as being how you rewire the stress response to get to improve overall health and specific problems. Your patients will tend to have, some will be more chronic stress, and you're going to go after those core circuits and the situational stress tool of the Be Positive. You're going to have other patients that are more reactive stress, and you're going to emphasize more the stop a trigger, because when they're reactive, they feel out of control, then they blame themselves, and that feeds the core circuits. So you're going to see that there's an overall 1-year program to do this, but the main thing is, as a health professional, we want you to have the 5 core skills of stress overload for your own stress protection and to help your patients get improvements in their health faster. So I hope I answered the question. One's a false association, and which is a triggered response, and one is this core belief that leads to more of a chronic stress that's a false generalization. In one moment, they felt they weren't powerful, but the brain generalized that they're always not powerful. I hope that makes sense.
He said, thank you very much. Yes, very helpful.
Great.
And so the last question, Gabriella asked if the app is is the app for providers and clients any different, or is it just the same app?
Oh, well, everyone, there's one app, but the training program teaches you how to use that app differently in your clinical. So you're going to, when your patient leaves the session, they're going to use the Stop a Trigger tool on the app. With the 2-day program, you learn how to take that Stop a Trigger tool and make it go down to brain state 5 so you can get at the trauma and the addiction and the obesity and the diabetes circuits. Okay, so essentially you're using the same framework as they are, but with the professional training and certification, you learn how to go right to the bottom of the brain and get the deeper circuits that they will not be able to get on their own. So the resilience process of those 23 sets is the same either way, but you use additional skills so you could have more of an impact on mental health, behavioral health, and physical health.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Mellon. If anyone doesn't have any questions, then I just want to remind folks that I'll send out an email after this with the link to the evaluation survey. So if you do want this time to count towards CEU credits, just make sure you fill out that survey. But if there's nothing else, then I just want to say thank you to everyone again for staying this long. This is probably the most amount of people that have stayed for a full session. So thank you, Dr. Mellon, for such a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Y'all take care.
You too.
Bye, everyone.
There we go.